This is Dr. Jennifer Jansen from the Zepf Center. You're listening to JJ's Clinical Connection, connecting you to clinical topics. Join me as we take a deep dive into the world of behavioral health and learn about hot topics, innovative approaches, and top-notch professionals shaping our industry. Welcome to our first full-length episode. We're so happy you tuned in. This month, we're celebrating LGBT Pride. We'll be speaking with two Zepf Center clinicians, Kae and Emily, who are spearheading the LGBT inclusion and awareness efforts for Zepf Center's staff and clients. They will walk us through Zepf Center's LGBT Safe Zone training, highlighting specific programs that support members of the queer community and share some truly incredible resources that are available right in our own community. We're going to be talking about a lot of amazing organizations and resources today, so be sure to check out our show notes for all of the details. Stay tuned for an amazing conversation. So we're back in the studio this afternoon with Kae and Emily. In honor of Pride Month, we're going to be talking about the Safe Zone training. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves to our listeners?
Hi, my name is Kae Gregg. I am the Clinical Manager of Emergency Services. I have been with the Zepf Center for a little over 2 years. I use she, her pronouns, and I am incredibly excited to be here today.
My name is Emily Karras. My preferred pronouns are she, her. I am a youth case manager, and I've been at the Zepf Center for a little over a year.
So, can you tell me a little bit about when the both of you started doing Safe Zone training and a little bit about how you decided to become an instructor?
I began to develop Safe Zone with a colleague last summer. We had identified in our crisis care department that some of our team members were having difficulty navigating the identities and the unique needs of our LGBT clients. So we took that to another team member, and her response was incredibly empowering and supportive. And she essentially said, run with it, right? Support our clients the way that they need to be supported. So we looked on the Safe Zone website, and they have this sort of training in a box curriculum. And we identified that it definitely seemed to be catered toward more of a corporate environment, right? Less of that direct care that we provide. So we looked at that training and we explored our own lived experiences. We talked to different clients in the crisis care department, and we followed that by spending many, many hours at my home in the evenings after work developing this training for months, right? We found that we needed to really be able to talk about openly the issues of trauma-informed care, of intersectionality, of the impact of being LGBT, being a person of color, being someone who lives in poverty or is experiencing chronic homelessness, who is also struggling with substance use disorders or mental health concerns. We really catered it to crisis care and what Zepf does as a whole to support our LGBT clients. And then I've had the pleasure of recently beginning to train Emily to become one of my co-facilitators.
I just became approved to facilitate Safe Zone last month, and I'll be doing my first training with help from Kae this Wednesday. So excited about it. I think what led me to want to do it was being so passionate about our trauma-informed, trauma-responsive care here at Zepf. I just feel privileged to have the opportunity to help others expand their understanding and empathy for our LGBT consumers and coworkers.
Tell us a little bit about what you've added. What could we expect if we were to participate in this training?
What people can expect in this training is an open conversation, right? It's all based in our exact same values of trauma-informed care and the sanctuary model. We are really just seeking to expand that into the specific and unique needs of our LGBT clients and coworkers and community members. There's no expectation of people to be perfect. There's no use of words like political correctness or anything else in that sort of vein that I think people have concerns about sometimes. It's more about education and about the clients being able to know in their heart and know with confidence that you care about them. You care about who they are, their lived experience, and why they came to the Zepf Center on that day.
Emily, tell me a little bit about Safe Zone training and developing allies in our community. How does that resonate with you?
I really liked something that Kae mentioned last time when I got to shadow them doing this Safe Zone training. And that was that we sort of live in this progressive Toledo bubble. And it's wonderful because it really reflects all of the progress that we've made. And I think sometimes it's easy to get kind of lulled into a false sense of security that bad things don't really happen anymore. But I don't think that means that the bigotry, the discrimination, the social rejection have just disappeared. And I think that trainings like this really help us all to understand that those things are still happening and those are challenges that our clients are facing today. I really think that can help expand our understanding and our empathy.
So let's talk a little bit about the support that members of the LGBTQ plus community can expect to find here at Zepf Center.
Part of the Safe Zone training is a handout that I've created that has a resource list of all of the different LGBT specific or openly LGBT supportive community resources that I could find in, our local area as well as our statewide area, as well as some like national level hotlines and websites. Because what we want people to be able to expect is the exact same quality of care, support, and understanding that any other client can expect at the Zepf Center. They should be able to expect, empathetic listening, treatment teams that are responsive and attentive to their needs, trauma-informed care.
I would just like to echo exactly what you said. I think you can expect to find providers who are empathic, compassionate, and educated about the LGBTQ community. I think you can expect to feel respected and welcomed here.
Great. Let's talk about some of those supports that we have here at Zepf Center. Specifically, I know we have some programs tailored toward youth.
Yeah, absolutely. So I established 2 LGBTQ youth groups, a weekly group for kiddos aged 12 to 17, and a bi-weekly group for young adults aged 18 to 24. And we're also currently working on a plan to establish a family group for guardians of queer identifying youth. So we can help remove barriers for families that don't have transportation. We can help find resources and provide support. Myself and my co-facilitators are all queer identified, so we not only provide the young people with positive role models, we're also uniquely qualified to understand and provide them with insight on their own journey.
Oh, I love that. And I know our tagline here at Zepf Center, Hope Begins Here. It sounds like you're creating a lot of hope and positive future roles for youth in that group. Have you had any feedback from the youth that are participating and or their guardians?
Yes. So all of the feedback we've had so far has been overwhelmingly positive. The kids want to be there. We've had a couple of kids who have aged out of the program, but almost all the kids there have stayed. When they start, they stay. And I think it's just feeling accepted, feeling seen, feeling understood, and creating that community with each other, which I think is one of the biggest things we want to help them do, is learn how to create those connections with others so that they can create a chosen family for themselves.
Emily, what happens when kids do age out of our youth services? Are there supports for them?
So our younger kids will age into our older group, the 18 to 24 group. When they do become adults, there are options in the community that we are kind of showing them and linking them up with ahead of time so they have an idea. For example, I believe the Thomas Warnert Center offers LGBT groups for adults, which is awesome. There is some there are resources available through Equitas. There is a lot of resources available online that can be accessible to people in their homes. The Trevor Project is awesome. PFLAG is awesome. Those are resources that young people can access anytime, day or night, and find support. And no matter what their age, we have crisis lines available on those websites as well.
It is important that we look at the full continuum in terms of youth to adulthood. And I know some of the statistics for our youth in our queer community are pretty dismal. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
At least one queer identifying child attempts suicide every 45 seconds. These kids are more than 4 times as likely to experience severe mental health symptoms and suicidality, and those numbers can increase exponentially when you consider intersectionality factors, like Kae mentioned, race, cultural, religious identity, socioeconomic status. But these same studies also suggest that queer youth who have at least one supportive adult in their lives can reduce their risk of suicide by 40%. Kids who perceive that their families and communities display high social support for them report attempting suicide at less than half the rate of unsupported peers. This advocacy and support that we do, it isn't just important, it's a matter of life and death. And if we can all be that one person for a queer identifying kid who's struggling with suicidal ideation, how many lives could we save doing that?
If I can add to that as well, one thing that we talk about in the Safe Zone training is that LGBT youth are 120% more likely to experience homelessness than non-LGBT youth. And here at the Zepf Center, one thing that we provide is Safety Net, which is the only youth runaway shelter in quite a large mile radius. And it's incredibly beneficial to be able to say that we genuinely have this continuum of care, right? It's not something we're just saying, we're showing it, we're doing it. These kids have a safe place to go, and then they have safe places to be throughout their entire life, well into their older years.
Absolutely. Why is it important for agencies like Zepf Center to publicly advocate and support the LGBT community?
I think we live in a very interesting time in the general popular culture and zeitgeist, right? Because you have a great deal of people who very much believe that marriage equality solved everything, and that homophobia and transphobia are not serious concerns anymore. And on the other side, you have many people who are advocating very publicly in the political sphere to remove rights from members of the LGBT community. By publicly and openly declaring our commitment to the LGBT community, the Zepf Center is showing that we are on the right side of history here, and we are giving our clients one less thing to worry about. One last question of, is somebody going to treat me differently because of this? We're removing just one more barrier from accessing essential life-saving care, and that's truly invaluable. As an employee of the Zepf Center, I can say that I have worked for agencies that were not supportive of me as a lesbian woman, that did not value my identity and my lived experience. To have Safe Zone go from an idea to a training for crisis care to what it is now, which is a required training at every single Zepf Center new hire orientation, it's an incredible experience. It's something I'm incredibly honored to do, and it makes me proud to work here because I feel that the Zepf Center has pride in who I am.
So I came out when I was 11 years old, and that was in the late 90s. When I first identified myself, and I don't think I ever thought that I would have a career that not only accepted my identity, but allowed me to help others learn to embrace and celebrate their own identities. Working with these young people has given me the opportunity to be the person I needed when I was a kid. And I think a lot of us find a lot of meaning and healing in that. So it's been kind of a dream come true in a way to work in a place where I have the opportunity to do that, and that the company is always seeking ways to be more inclusive and to bring that to the forefront of the conversation. So
what are some of the ways that people can be inclusive of the LGBTQ plus community in their workplaces, assuming they're not here at Zepf Center with us?
I think we get caught up in understanding. We get caught up in understanding others who have different identities than our own. Understanding, to me, is not nearly as important as acceptance. For example, I don't understand Arabic, but I accept that it is just as valid, complex, and unique as my own language. If we remove the need for understanding and we focus on acceptance, we can start to see the humanity of the person in front of us. We can change the question from "why are you like this?" to "how can I support you?"
I really agree wholeheartedly with what Emily said about understanding versus acceptance. One thing I mention in Safe Zone is that it doesn't all have to make sense to you, right? For me as a lesbian woman, I don't intrinsically understand what it's like to be heterosexual, bisexual, transgender, or any other identity. But what I want others to understand is that I care and that I'm listening and that they matter to me, their life experiences matter to me, their identities matter to me. So when we talk about other agencies and how they can support the LGBT community, it really is about empathy. It's about being trauma informed. It's about those sanctuary values and principles, which I believe boil down to listening and caring, right? There are other tangible actions that agencies can take, such as revising client forms to offer gender-neutral options such as partner, or gender identities such as transgender or non-binary. There are resources such as the list that I mentioned that I provide at Safe Zone that other agencies can identify and give to their staff.
You said something really cool during the training that we had. You said that it's not, because somebody asked a similar question, and you said it's not about getting it right every time. It's about showing that you care. It's about asking the question. So you don't have to make a big deal out of it. You can just say, what are your preferred pronouns? And if you slip up, all you have to say is, "Oh, I'm sorry, that's right," and then you use the preferred name. It's just showing that you care. It's not about like, "Oh my gosh, I have to get it right every single time."
So the Zepf Center is a certified trauma-informed, trauma-responsive care agency. And we really talk about the value of being trauma-informed. Tell me a little bit about how you see that in conjunction with building people's understanding and competency around our LGBTQ plus community.
One thing that we talk about in the Safe Zone training is that people within the LGBT community have incredibly disproportionately high rates of adverse childhood experiences and physical, emotional, and environmental trauma as adults. My lived experience as a lesbian woman involves conversion therapy. It involves violence related to homophobia. It involves discrimination in the workplace. And I am somebody who has been able to achieve a formal education, who has been able to become a professional, who has been able to arrive to where I am in life. Now, if we try and imagine what it is like to cope with, process, and recover from those traumas when you are doing it alone, when you are doing it on the streets, when you are doing it while actively living in addiction, right? That's where that intersectionality piece comes in. And that's where we have to say providing comprehensive and culturally competent care to the LGBT community is trauma-informed care. It is trauma-responsive care.
I really thought it was awesome that our safe zone training was very much a discussion, because I think hearing some of those personal experiences like Kae talked about was really impactful for the people who were attending. I spoke at that time about how every person that I know personally in the LGBT community has experienced some form of violence, homophobia, discrimination, social rejection. I know a disproportionate amount of LGBT people who have been kicked out of their families' homes, who live with friends, who live with chosen family. I think the amount of trauma in the community is really staggering. And I think that giving people the opportunity to hear those stories and to, I guess it almost makes it so you can't say that you don't know somebody who's been through something like that. You know me as your coworker, and you know Kae as your coworker, and you wave hi to us in the break room or whatever. But to know that those are our stories, it really puts a face on it. It makes you care about it in a way that you might not if it's just a concept. This is actually something real that people go through.
I think that's a great point. We talk about trauma-informed care, focusing a lot on feeling safe. And there are more than one type of safety. So we think about physical safety as one of the most salient types of safety, but there are actually multiple types of safety to include social, psychological, and moral safety. And I think for anyone to feel confident in themselves and in their environment, we really need to explore some of those other types of safety and how we create that for people. What advice would you give someone who's struggling with their mental health or substance use issues, but is nervous to seek treatment because of their gender identity or their sexuality?
Come on down to the Zepf Center.
Love it.
Genuinely, I would advise just walking in, right? That first step is historically the hardest step, but there are so many of us that work here. There are so many that get services here that have made it through that first step and have come out the other side and wouldn't change a single thing about the recovery process that they've experienced. We are doing things like this podcast and like our involvement in the Toledo Pride Parade every single year, not to give ourselves a pat on the back, but to say this is real. We mean this. We're committed to this. You can come here and trust that people will care and that people will listen and that you will be accepted for who you are. And if you can trust that, I believe that first step feels a little bit lighter.
I agree with everything you said. And I would also say I've had the opportunity. It's so funny because I think that youth clients and adult clients are so different. Adults come to the Zepf Center and say, my life isn't working for me. Please help me. Kids are often just kind of dropped off here. They don't want to be here. They don't care if things are working for them or not really. You sort of have to reach them where they are. And so I've actually had the opportunity to talk to those clients and say, I know what it's like to be lost in that dark place. And I know you've overcome struggles that no one knows about. I know the courage it takes to heal. I know that you possess the strength to do that because you're still here. And I can reassure them that we work for an agency that cares about who they are, and that they can feel that when they come through our doors and they feel accepted by all of our staff and everybody gets to know their names. And I really do feel like the kids become so comfortable. And that's how we reach them, is because they come here and, they really get to know who we are.
Part of our hope, too, with expressing our support of the community is hoping that other agencies in our community will see us as an ally and value the work that we're doing. What can you guys add about collaboration with other community partners or supports for our clients that are seeking treatment?
I hope that other community agencies hear what we're saying today as an invitation to work with us, to partner with us, and to help us accomplish our shared, mission for the community. I want to believe that we are all doing this for the same reason, which is for the betterment of our community members, which is to support and empower and care for people. I think if agencies have any questions or any resource needs or any services needs, they just like anyone else, they just need to call, need to walk in, right? Find us, ask us questions. We'd be more than happy to help foster these connections and these partnerships to support the LGBT community and the Toledo community as a whole.
I agree with that. And I think that, Zeph's participation in community events like Pride is huge because it shows that we're doing something about it and other community agencies are watching. And so I think that especially in the queer community, we jump on sharing resources. So, I think Kae and I, after the last training, we stood outside with a coworker and that was asking a question about local resources. And we're just all on our phones like, oh, you can check this out and go here and check this out. And did you know Zepf has primary care? And, and I think that's just how the community is. So I know that when I'm in the community and I see, another agency that's doing something for the queer community, I introduce myself. I say I'm from Zepf. I give my business card, and I want to foster that open communication so that we can all, help together. What better way to be effective?
If I can add as well, I have learned in the last few months that I need to carry, and I do now, carry crisis care cards with me everywhere, because whether I'm shopping at a local thrift store on Adams Street or meeting with another member of the LGBT community who works in a community agency, or I'm at a restaurant, or I'm at my hairstylist, these conversations come up. People share their feelings and they share their needs. And I have had to replenish the crisis care cards in my purse many times, much more than I thought I would. And just like Emily said, the desire for connection and community is very real. And I think it's even more, it's even stronger within the LGBT community because so many of us have learned that the only people we can rely on are each other. So to be able to say, oh, here's another resource that you can genuinely rely on is invaluable.
Sounds like both of you are super dedicated to the mission of social justice and out there spreading information, providing hope, connecting people to resources. What would you say might be our next steps in this movement?
I think something that we've been talking a lot about is to connect within the company. So I keep hearing, there are people within Zepf that are in different places that want to do the same thing. And I think we're really starting to bring some of those people together and look at what the next steps might be. We think that Zepf is doing a great job, but that's awesome because it gives us a platform to move even further. So I think that first step here is going to be connecting all these people that have the same interest in doing the same thing and kind of jumping off from there.
I think the community partnerships that we've been talking about are really my highlight for the answer to this question. There are so many incredible agencies that are providing different services and different supports. And to be able to expand that teamwork is incredibly essential. To be able to expand and offer Safe Zone at other places would be incredible, right? I am a licensed social worker, and my code of ethics states that political involvement is part of my responsibility. I think as a community of professionals in this area, we have a responsibility to continue to advocate for our clients and for the LGBT community, not just internally, but externally. I want to see more agencies having tables at all the places that Zepf has tables. I want to see more agencies being involved in all the parades that Zepf is involved in. We need to be making our voice heard because it matters.
So when I talk about supporting individuals in our community, many of them are in need of resources. What recommendations do you have for local resources for people?
If you're not ready to commit to coming to Zepf, you can call and talk to someone on our crisis line. That's an awesome resource. We also have a great food pantry. It's run by Equality Toledo. It's actually right behind our Ashland location on Floyd Street. They will allow you to come without a photo ID, which a lot of homeless people don't have access to. They've lost, it's been stolen. They'll use your chosen name and pronouns. You put everything on the form that you want them to call you. That's a great resource. And it's just a walk-up window. You wait in line, you get your stuff, and you can leave right from there. We also recommend all of the online resources. Again, the Trevor Project is awesome. PFLAG is awesome. You can talk to people online and kind of start yourself on that path of maybe opening yourself up to getting treatment in person by talking to other people who maybe they have gone through that already.
Okay, what other resources do you know about in our community?
When we talk about resources, I think it's important to consider more than just those that are perhaps obviously defined as resources, right? When an important resource is community building. On Adams Street, we have multiple LGBT-owned businesses that are really spearheading that coalition building for the local LGBT community. For example, there is House of Dow, which is a locally owned, trans-owned thrift store that partners every year with Trans Toledo to do a free clothing swap in the month of June. There is also Grinders, which is a locally owned, lesbian-owned coffee shop that has support groups in their coffee shop. They have clothing sales in their coffee shop. They are an incredibly welcoming and supportive environment. Equality Toledo also has on their website a list of spiritual and religious groups in the area that are supportive of the LGBT community and have gone through Equality Toledo's specific process to vet that support and to confirm that it is genuine.
So as we wrap up today, I'm just wondering if either of you have any final tips for our listeners, tips that help them have a better understanding of what we're talking about today, or how they can embrace diversity and inclusion with our queer community.
I believe, to put it as concisely as possible, that my biggest advice is to ask questions, to not assume, and to genuinely care about and listen to the answer that you get. As we've said multiple times throughout this podcast, there is no expectation of knowing everything or doing everything perfectly. And if that expectation did exist, I wouldn't be able to keep up with it, right? We are all people. We are all trying our best, and we are all living with our own backgrounds and our own experiences that impact the way that we interpret information or learn new things. If you don't know how somebody wants to be referred to, ask them. If they tell you an answer and you don't understand what that means, ask them. If you're not sure what support someone needs from you, ask them, right? It's conversational. It's just human relationships, like everything else in this field and our lives are based on.
I would like to say, to people who want to be better allies, the same thing as what Kae is saying about, ask for pronouns, but ask people to tell you their story. Ask people where they come from and what they've been through. And, I think sometimes people are afraid to talk about those kinds of things, because they wonder, like, is that okay? Is it okay to talk to someone? And most of the time people are dying to tell you. And if they're not, yeah, oh, well, you tried, and to young people who may be struggling right now, I would say find your people, find your community. Like, we're out here, we exist, and we're looking for them too.
Kae and Emily, I really want to thank both of you today for coming into the studio and talking with us and sharing information with our listeners.
I so appreciate you bringing, our voices to the forefront, especially during Pride Month. We just so appreciate the opportunity to be here and do this.
Thank you so much for having us. It's been an incredible opportunity. I am incredibly proud to be here with you and with Emily. And for everyone listening, please keep your eyes out for us at Pride this year in August. We'll be looking forward to speaking with you.
Well, that's all for us today. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to download and share this episode. For the latest clinical connections, subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever your favorite podcasts are found. For more information about the community resources and programs mentioned today, be sure to check out our show notes below. For more information on Zepf Center, visit us at zeffcenter.org or find us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. This is Dr. Jennifer Jansen signing out. Until next time.